Yo, Ryan Hart here. Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast channel. These are the interview sessions where I put my curious questions to inspiring people with one goal in mind, to help you be better than you were yesterday in your heart and in your mind. While you're here spending time with us, I'd love it if you subscribed, leave a like, or maybe drop a comment below with letting us know some of your thoughts on the interview. Please do share it with someone that you'd love to help be better too. Bob, welcome back to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you?
I'm great, Ryan. It's always terrific to be with you.
Thank you. It is a year today that I published episode 71 with your good self, and
Yeah.
you've been. Do you know what? I just want to thank you publicly. You've been a great supporter of my content, and it's been really great to really build a friendship. Although we've never met, I'm really grateful for the support and the encouragement that you continue to provide.
Well, my absolute pleasure. You're doing great work, and it's always it's always a fantastic thing to be able to be there and root on and encourage and be friends with someone who is bringing such immense value to the world. So thank you.
Thank you. Last time we focused a lot on The Go-Giver Leader. That was a book that really inspired and transformed my own leadership. You gave a frame of reference to a style of leadership that I just wasn't used to in the police, and I'm really grateful for that. But I think today we're going to focus on the Go-Giver Influencer, if that's cool with you.
Sure, sure.
What What's the essence? What is the essence of influence?
Well, you think about the term influence, and it's a
Mm,
very overused term, and so because of that, it gets defined unconsciously by different people in different ways. So I always like to start out with a definition so that we're
mm,
all at least coming from the same direction. And so on a basic, very, very basic level, influence can be defined as the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. That's influence by definition. Now, that's its influence, but as you say, that's different from its essence, right? The essence of influence is pull,
mm,
pull as opposed to push.
mm.
And I think you and I have discussed that
Yeah.
before, right? That we, instead of pushing ourselves on someone, instead we pull, which is an attraction, right?
Mm,
It Great influencers attract people first to themselves and only then to their ideas, and
mm.
they do that again through pull, as opposed to trying to push their ideas, pushing their will, pushing themselves on others, which tends to be, that's compliance, right? And it tends to not work at all, but even when it does, it's not sustainable. But pull elicits people's commitment,
Mm,
and that's the key.
mm. What is Pindar's paradox?
Well, Pindar's paradox is the more you give, the more you have.
Mm,
And that's where we start by looking at what we mean by giving. And giving in this context simply means
mm,
to constantly and consistently provide immense value to others. And when you focus on doing that, okay, not only is it a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's actually the most financially profitable way as well. And not for some woo woo way out there magical mystical reason. It actually makes very logical sense. Um, when you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and instead place it on others, trying
yeah.
to discover what they need, what they want, what they desire,
Mm,
what problems they have that you can help them solve or work through. When you can be focused on trying to bring them closer to
mm,
happiness, right? People
mm,
feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to see you succeed. They want to help you find, they want to do business with you. They want to help you find new business through referrals and introducing you to others. You develop what we call an army of personal walking ambassadors. That's influence,
mm,
right? And so really, when we say the go-giver influencer, we're talking about being able to deal with people in such a way that you get the results you desire while helping other people feel genuinely
mm,
good
mm,
about themselves, about the situation, and about you. And it's the person who can do that, Ryan, who really has the edge in life, because I think you can get to a certain point of success, certainly through technical skills, through
Hmm.
competence alone, through just, being good at what you do, being talented. That's very important. But all of those things are simply, it's the entrance fee to getting to play, right? You can have a certain amount of success that way, absolutely. But it's those with those superb people skills.
Yeah,
They're the
love that.
people who go to that next level of what we call stratospheric success.
Your book talks about influence is determined by how abundantly you place others' needs before your own, and that's my own personal definition of leadership: putting someone else's needs before our own. And John Maxwell simply says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So there's definitely something in this. Leadership is influence, and um, but before we're able to lead others, we must first lead ourselves. And I think step one in your framework is master your emotions. Why?
Yeah.
Why is that step one?
Well, that's where it all begins, because it's only when you're in control of your own emotions that you're even in a position to take a potentially negative situation or person and turn it into a win for everyone involved. I mean, I think we all know this intuitively. That person that who we know who is able to really just operate from a sense of calmness and serenity, and they're on top of things, and it doesn't matter what else is happening around them. They just, they have it together. We respect that person, right?
Mm,
And so we know it's a good thing to be able to do that. But how often do we, based on what someone else does or says, how often do we allow ourselves to feel hurt or victimized or helpless or frustrated or angry, right? And we say or do
mm,
the very thing that not only is it not productive, it's actually very counterproductive to
mm,
attaining the goal or the outcome we want, right? And people do this all the time. Well, why? Well, because we're human beings. And as human beings, we are emotional creatures. That's just
mhm,
how we are. Now, we'd like to think we're logical, and to a certain extent, of course, we are, but we're pretty emotion based, pretty emotion driven. We make major decisions based on emotion, and we back up those decisions with logic, right?
mm, mm,
We
mm.
rationalize, which really just means we tell ourselves rational lies in order to justify that emotion based decision we made, or losing our cool and
Mhm,
acting inappropriately and in a way that's not productive, right? Because we'd rather, not take responsibility for it. So it's important to understand this, and that what we're not saying is to deny your emotions or
Sure.
forego your emotions. First, it wouldn't work. It would be denying human nature. Okay. And that's not sustainable. But secondly, there's no reason to have to do that. Emotions
Mm,
are great. They're a fantastic part of life. They bring us joy. They make life worthwhile. No, you don't have to forgo them.
mm,
Just make sure that you're the master of your emotions, as opposed to they being the master of you. Or as one of my great friends, the leadership speaker and author, Dondi Scumaci, as she so eloquently says, by all means, take your emotions along for the ride, but
mm,
make sure you are driving the car.
love that. I love that. You talk about emotions, and I really liked your description of the difference between manipulation and
And
persuasion. And there
persuasion.
was something to do with the use of negative emotions. What was that?
Yeah, well, so you can influence others, and where again, influence by definition is moving someone to a certain desired action. You
Mm,
can do that through either persuasion, which is positive, or
mm-hmm,
manipulation, which is negative. Now, persuasion and manipulation um, are, I like to say, they're cousins.
mm,
Okay, because both persuaders and manipulators understand human nature. They understand what drives and motivates people, and they know.
mm-hmm.
Now, one is the good cousin, and one's the evil cousin, right? But they're cousins, and
Sure.
they both understand and can do. Now, when you and Paul W. Sweats, who wrote a great book. It was published gosh, I guess back in 1987, called The Art of Talking So That People Will Listen, which was really more about listening than it was about talking. But
Mm.
he said manipulation aims at control, not cooperation. It does
Mm.
not consider the good of the other party. It results in a win-lose
Mm.
situation. Persuasion, on the other hand, in direct opposite to that, always seeks a win-win. Persuasion is
Mm.
about treating the other person in the right way, responsibly, as self-directing individuals, right? So
Mm.
a manipulator may not necessarily be aiming to hurt the other person, okay? But if that's what it takes to get what they want, they'll do it. It's all about themselves. Whereas with a persuader, that would never happen, because for them to feel good about the situation,
Yeah.
they need to know the other person is also benefiting and feeling good about it as well. So what a manipulator will often do is they'll play upon your negative emotions of guilt,
Mm.
of
Yeah.
feeling ignorant or stupid, or not going along with the crowd, or so in other words, they'll kind of detect what your weak point is, what your weak spot is, what your lack of confidence, where it is,
Mm.
and they'll go for that, and they'll try. So what you want to do is, when you feel as though you're about to do something because someone else is trying to get you to do it, but you don't really want to, and just kind of get conscious of it and say to yourself, okay, there's something about this I'm not feeling right about, even though I'm just about to take this action that I really don't want to do. Why
Mm.
am I doing that?
Mm.
What is it about what I'm feeling? And how is this person saying things or doing things that's sort of eliciting me feeling? And then take responsibility for those feelings. And then you've got to be able to politely, say, well, thank you. It's not something I'm
Yeah.
interested in doing, but thank you for asking, or
Mm.
however you want to say it.
Mm.
But you need to take responsibility. You need to make sure you're in control of your emotions and you're not letting someone else dictate how you feel.
Yeah. You write in the book that the single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it occurred in the first place. And I just wonder, how can we as leaders bridge that gap of illusion? How can we learn to step into someone else's shoes?
Yeah, and stepping into the other person's shoes sounds like an easy thing to do. It's
Mm.
certainly a saying that's been used for years, and
Mm.
so it's kind of a trite type of, okay, but
Mm.
then you think about it, it sounds easy to do, but maybe it's not when you consider that most of us have different size feet.
Mm.
Okay, so literally we can't step into the
Mm.
other person's shoes. Figuratively, we can't step into their minds because we're not them.
Mm.
And as human beings, we all come at the world from our own unique set of beliefs, what I call our belief system. Now, what is a
Mm.
belief? A belief, by definition, is a subjective truth. It's the
Mm.
truth as you or I might understand the truth to be, which means it's our truth, not necessarily the truth. Okay. But it's how
Mm.
we see the world,
Mm.
combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movie. But by the time we're a little more than toddlers, our basic belief system has pretty much been etched in stone.
Mm.
And most people live their entire lives operating from what I call an unconscious operating system,
Mhm.
believing that they're acting out of free will and conscious choice when really they're operating within a matrix,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
That
Mm.
is kind of dictating exactly where they can, right, decide from. Now, here's the thing: not only do we do that, and see the world from our own unique set of beliefs, so does everyone else.
Mm.
But as human beings, we tend to believe that the way we see the world is basically the same way everyone else sees the world,
Mm.
which makes intuitive sense. How could it be anything different? It's all we know. However, it's not true. They see the world based on their experiences and
Mhm.
beliefs and so forth, and we see it ours. So, what we need to be able to do in order to step into their shoes is to understand, okay, how we ask questions. We ask questions and then we listen.
Mm.
And we listen not just with our ears, which is the surface listening most people do, or listening in order to speak, listening in order to sharp angle them into doing what we want them to do. No, we listen in order to absolutely, totally understand,
Mm.
and asking more questions to make sure that what they said is what we heard,
Mm.
that what they meant is what we understood, because
Yeah.
we don't know that. So we have to be able to go deeper into this in order to
Mm.
really make sure.
Is that what you mean by listening with the back of your neck?
Yeah, it's listening with your eyes, with your posture, your body, with the back of your neck. It's being so intent in your listening that you're able to really go deep into your understanding.
I love that. I want to bring in my community very shortly to ask questions. I'm very conscious of your time, but I want to acknowledge. So the book's incredible. The 5 principles are
Thank you.
fantastic. But the one thing that really stood out to me in reading it was this one line. It's empathy isn't about thinking, it is feeling what the other person is feeling. Tact is the ability to speak to that place truthfully, yet with compassion. That, for me, in 2 sentences, describes what it means to be a heart-centered leader, to be able to get in amongst all the messiness of human beings and be able to have great heart-to-heart conversations.
Yeah, and you've got to really, and I love what you said, because it's only that leader who is other focused. We like to say
Mm.
be internally motivated, but
Mhm.
externally focused.
Mhm.
And when you're truly externally focused, okay, when it really is about the other person, that is when you're going to do your best to really identify with that
Mhm.
person, with their thoughts, with their feelings. It means, yeah, you are going to edit yourself before you speak, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with doing that, because you want to make sure that what you say
Mhm.
is said in a way that's going to honor that other person and have the best chance of being understood. My
Mm.
dad always said tact is the language of strength.
Mm.
And I've always loved that, because, a lot of times, you just want to, especially somebody sends you a nasty email or says
Mm.
something to you in a way that rubs you the wrong way and pushes your buttons and or whatever. You just want to like snap back. Well, it takes strength to not do that. That
Mm.
goes back to controlling your emotions. But, tact really, when you think about it, is communicating an idea to someone that they normally would not be open to,
Mm.
but doing so in such a way that not only are they not defensive toward you and resistant to your ideas, but they're open to you and they're more accepting
Mm.
of your idea. And
Mm.
that's what tact and empathy really allows you to do.
Mm. My last comment is that there's a lot to be said about the social media influencer that seems to have a model that is me focused, and I just hope that this book lands in many influencers out there that realizes that actually they will rise by lifting others.
Yeah, well, you always like to think that's gonna happen. So, I mean, some of the when you say, social media influencers, these are the people with the 5 bajillion followers who are celebrities, and it's just like the day, on television where you had athletes, or you had,
Mm.
acting professionals, or you had other people who did commercials selling aspirin. Well, they weren't doctors, but and many of them didn't even play one on TV. Okay, but the reason that they were used is because they're influencers. They people, and so nothing's changed in that regard. Just the
Yeah.
medium,
Yeah. Yeah.
has
Yeah.
changed. But now, so you've got someone who has, 5 million followers or whatever, and they're maybe known for a certain. Well, sure, they make it about them, but that's because they're operating simply from a celebrity status, and
Mm.
there's a certain amount of people who are gonna buy from them.
Mm.
But for
Mm.
people like us who are not celebrities, okay, we've got to be able to focus on who we are trying to bring value
Absolutely.
to. Sure.
Bob, with your permission, I'm going to invite my team to turn their cameras
Ah,
on.
I'd love that.
What we have is we have a group of heart-centered leaders. So this is about a third of our community. We come together every week to grow in our hearts and minds as leaders.
Fantastic.
And I'm really grateful that you're all here on live on the podcast, and they're going to hopefully show their faces and at least let you know that they are not just a square on a Zoom call. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite. I don't think we've got time for more than 3 questions, so I would look to the team now to who would like to ask the first question, and I invite you to unmute yourself and ask your question to Bob. Not all at once. Bethan, go ahead. Abbie, go ahead.
Hi, Bob. How you doing?
Good, Abbie. How are you?
Yeah, having a good week, thank you. I just also want to
Excellent.
acknowledge that lovely library behind you. That looks amazing, and I'd love to like get stuck into that at some point. But yeah, I'm just having a think really, and yeah, as Ryan says, we're all kind of like heart-centered leaders out doing various different things. But my thoughts led to how much I could perhaps put your work and theories just into personal relationships as well as like places of work or other places of like leadership. Does it transcend across all sort of levels like that?
Yeah, these are, and by the way, regarding the library, I always I tell people my house is comprised of books with some scattered furniture. So yeah, books are a big part of my life.
Yeah,
And
great.
yeah, the principles that John and I talk about in all three of the books are basically, they're universal. So they were, when we talk about success, there's success in all areas. There's certainly financial, but there's physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, and all the other
Animal.
forms. Yeah. And so all the, so every one of the laws or principles that we put in any of the books are always designed to work across the board in all areas of life, which I think universal laws and principles pretty much do.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. That's
Great
great. Thanks very
question.
much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Bob, I forgot to acknowledge the fact that you talk about the angels in fur and the surreal moment I had when Uncle Bobby wants to kiss my dog. It was a surreal moment.
Thank you.
Amazing. Callum, have you got a question, my friend?
Hi, Bob. Just thank you for your time this evening.
Hi, Callum.
I would like to know the reason why you decided to go this direction with your life.
In terms of speaking and writing?
Speaking, writing, and sharing this message.
Well, I mean, I started out as a broadcaster, first in radio and then television. I wasn't very good at it, and I like what I call graduated into sales. And after stumbling around for a few months because I had no sales training, and the company where I was working certainly didn't provide any, I was in a bookstore and I found a couple of great books. One was by Tom Hopkins, one was by Zig Ziglar, a couple of the real icons in the selling space. And I got the books and started reading and studying and applying. And within a short period of time, my sales really began to go well. And it was very encouraging to me. And I really enjoyed it. And then, of course, as part of sales, a huge part of sales is personal development. And so I started getting books like How to Win Friends and Influence People and Think and Grow Rich and As a Man Thinketh and Psycho-Cybernetics and this, all these. It opened up this entire world to me because I was a horrible student in school and I had no use for any of that. And which, I mean, I regret that, of course, but I just wasn't interested in that. My education began when I got into sales. And I just loved the personal development aspect of it. And as my sales career took off and I became sales manager of another company, I started sharing with others what I was doing and was asked to speak at a couple of places. And then I went to a seminar and bought the person's audio program. And in the back, it said, if you want to make some extra money and learn how to speak and sell back then it was tapes. I mean, that's how long ago this was, call our office and let me know. So I did. And they taught me how to speak for free at all these civic clubs, groups, organizations, and then sell their tapes at the end. And it was a lot of fun. And I thought, I kind of want to go out on my own and do the thing, talk on what I like to speak about. And that's really how it started. So it kind of just evolved that way. And then once I decided I was going to become a professional speaker, then I began taking it really seriously. And I've been doing that now for a little over 30 years. Thank you for your question.
No, thank you. That was amazing.
My pleasure.
Bethan, do you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Bob, for your time this evening or today. I don't know what time it
pleasure.
is where you are.
Yeah, it's about almost 4:30. So yeah,
Oh, okay,
we're
not
still
too
afternoon.
bad.
So I appreciate all of you for being with me at night.
No, it's fine. Myself and Ryan actually had a conversation earlier today about obviously influencing, and I know there's probably a few of us on the call who completely undervalue or underestimate the impact that we can have or the influence that we have. What would you say to somebody who underestimates the influence that they can have on people, and what guidance would you give them?
Well, I mean, I think it all begins with consciousness. If you realize that that's an issue, that's great. Congratulations. If you realize that you're not seeing or really embracing the immense value that you have to be able to give to others and influence others in a positive way, it's great that you've recognized it. Now start thinking about, okay, what do I really have? What is my, I would say as human beings, we have two types of authentic value. We have intrinsic value just by being here, but we also have what I call market value. And I define market value as that combination of strengths, traits, talents, and characteristics that allow us to bring value to the marketplace in such a way that we'll be rewarded for it, whether financially or in any way that we choose, what have you. But it first begins with saying, okay, what are my strengths? What are my traits? What are my excellent characteristics? What do I bring to the table? What is it that I do, that I have, that I am, that is able to touch people's lives in a positive way? Now, here's the thing. It can be very difficult for us to do that ourselves because we're human beings and we're so emotionally close to ourselves. I mean, I'm 63 years old, and there's times I look in the mirror and still see that shy, skinny 16-year-old who was afraid to talk to girls, right? So I mean, we know ourselves too well. So that's why it can be very helpful to have a group like this that you're with. People who can recognize the strengths that you don't even see yourself as having. Because when we don't really value our own strengths, that's when we undervalue ourselves in terms of pricing, right? In terms of our ability to influence, in terms of our ability to provide value. So it is very important that we really kind of understand and embrace those assets of value that we have. I hope that helps.
Perfect. Thank you. But
My
yeah, it's just so
pleasure.
interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those words, we know ourselves too well.
That
hit like a
we're
hammer.
just too darn close to ourselves.
Yeah, that hit like a hammer. Reese has just said in the comments that hit hard. Reese, have you got a question, my friend?
Nah, no question. I was just like, no, everything you just said, Bob, it's like the undervaluing of yourself. I've just had some like Bob moments this week, and that just rammed it home even more. It's so true. We just don't. Yeah, we compare ourselves, I think, to too many other people rather than just there's only one of us, right?
Yeah, and here's the thing too, and you bring up a great point, Reese. And my friend Mark Sanborn says this, and I love this. He says, we see other people's highlight reels while we look at our own blooper tapes, right? And isn't that so true? Yeah. Of course, we're doing the same thing, right? And so, but it's that sort of human nature that's what we do.
Yeah.
Thanks, Reese. Cheryl, anything for you?
So yeah, thirdly, just to reiterate what everybody else has said. So thanks for your time this afternoon, should I say?
Thank you, Cheryl.
I think the bit that got me, as well as everything else that people have said here, is when you mentioned about taking on things that you don't necessarily want to be doing. Bethan, this is not aimed at you. Yeah, so that's a trap I find myself in a lot, is taking on work or job roles and things that I don't necessarily want to do. So just some advice on how to say no and be polite about it.
And you've got to be able to say no when no is the correct thing to do. I have a very easy way of doing it. Okay, that if because I've heard people say, well, just tell people no. No is a complete sentence. That's one of those things that sounds great in theory, but really, are you going to just tell someone no? It's rude. It's going to turn that person off to wanting to do anything with you. And basically, it's saying no like that just goes against your value system of treating other people with kindness and respect. Now, people often say, well, you say no by just kind of maybe telling a little fib like, well, I don't have the time. The challenge with that is, aside from knowing that you do have the time, because as human beings, we make the time to do what we value, really, it's that you value not doing this thing, right? More than you value doing it. Okay. And when that's the case, by the way, the answer should be no. But when you say, I don't have time, what that does is, that other person's probably used to hearing that. So when they are able to communicate persuasively why time is actually not an issue, now you're really in a bad position. You've either got to come clean and say, well, I really just didn't want to do it. And they're not going to feel good about it. You're not going to feel good about it. Or in order to save face, you've got to now say yes, right? And again, that's not what we want to do. Here's a way to say no, that if you will do this, practice it a couple times, and if you'll do this, it will absolutely set you free. Let's say someone asks you to, and we'll just say, serve on a committee, okay? And it's nice that they asked you. Obviously, they respect you, but you just don't want to do it for whatever reason. So here's what you say, and you can say it. I'll give you a couple different ways to say it, but the principle will be the same. Okay, they ask you to serve on a committee. You simply say, "Thank you so much. While it's not something I'd like to do, please know how honored I am to be asked." And that's it. Or you could say, "Oh, thank you for asking. While it's not something I choose to take on, please know how just delighted I am that you would think to ask me." Again, however you want to say it, but that's the basic principle. Now, what you did is you very kindly and nicely, you honored them. You even told them that you were honored. You were very, but you made it clear that the answer was no. But what you didn't do is you didn't give them an excuse to hold on to and be able to answer. Okay, so again, it's just thank you so much. While it's not something I'd like to do, please know how honored I am to be asked. Now, if they try one time to kind of guilt you into it, or right, as people will do, even well-meaning, and they say, "Oh, but we really need it," just kind of listen, don't interrupt, just listen with a gentle, smiling, or just a gentle look on your face, not defensive. And when they finish, you pause a second and then you say, "Oh, thank you. I'd rather not. But again, thank you so much for asking." And that's it. Now, let me suggest one thing. There are certain times, depending upon your relationship with this person and the specific ask, that it is appropriate to say why you can't do it, if there is a very specific reason. Otherwise, it would actually be rude not to. But 95% of the time, again, for generic requests like that, no, resist the temptation to give an excuse.
And what's Latin for compromise?
Right. Yeah. Compromise is Latin for nobody actually gets the results they want and everybody feels miserable about it. It's not that compromise is never appropriate, by the way. Of course, sometimes it is. But we would rather compromise not be the first option. We would rather aim for collaboration rather than compromise. Collaboration is 1 + 1 = 3, and everybody gets something, comes away better off. Compromise, by the very nature of the definition of the word, means both parties are giving up something in order to just advance the process. So yeah, time and place for it, but just not the first option.
Thank you so much for your time, Bob. Thank you for the work that you do with your colleague as well. And I want to be super respectful of your time and just say thank you. Would you mind leaving us a final thought from your good self?
I just think that to the degree we can focus on bringing immense value to the lives of others, not in a, when we say place other people's first, we don't mean in a self-sacrificial way or a martyr. No, but to the degree you can really focus on discovering what that other person wants, needs, desires, and focus on that, that's the degree that you become very, very influential.
My friend, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.